Money. You might like spending it, but I actually like saving it. And because of that reason, I have to think of economical ways to fulfill my filmmaking needs without spending too much money. This is a cage, but not just any cage. It's a universal cage. Now, I know a lot of people frown upon the idea of a universal cage, and to be perfectly honest, a lot of companies don't even make them anymore. And there's a reason for that. Because having one cage that fits every camera isn't really a good business strategy, is it? And that's why you should consider it. The thing with having a cage specifically designed for a specific camera is that once you sell that camera, typically that cage kind of goes along with it. It's really difficult to sell a cage on its own. It's not impossible, but it is actually very hard. And even if you include the cage with your camera package when you sell it, there's gonna be people out there that's gonna haggle and be like, hey, can you just take the cage off and just give me a discount? I don't really need the cage, you know. It happens all the time. Now, if you have an inexpensive cage, then it's still gonna suck. It's still gonna be wasteful if you can't use it for anything else and you have to throw it away, but at least it wasn't that pricey. But if you have an expensive cage, like a Zacuto, a shape cage, a bright tangerine, you're really gonna be losing out. That's why you may wanna have a universal cage, a cage that pretty much works for any camera with a similar form factor. The problem is that universal cages don't always fit the best, but this one is actually fully adjustable. This right here is a cage by a company called CAMVATE. It's a Chinese company. It's almost like a SmallRig alternative. And as I mentioned, it is fully adjustable and is actually very affordable as well. It's not that expensive. And I'll put all of this in the links in the description below so you can take a look at what I'm using here. This cage works primarily with DSLR or mirrorless type of bodies. You can't put this on a cinema camera, although C70, maybe. But yeah, fully adjustable, gives you all three axes of adjustments. You can remove these hex screws here and adjust the height of the cage. If you're using a camera that's really tall, camera that's really short, you can slide it up and down and make those adjustments. They also come with different brackets as well. So if your camera, I'm using the long one on here, but here's a shorter one. If your camera is really long, you can switch them out for the longer one and get more height. So for example, if you want to use a battery grip with your camera, you can do that with this longer bracket. You can also adjust the x-axis by removing these four hex screws here. And you can move that left or right. So if you have a Blackmagic Pocket cinema camera, for example, that's really wide, you can make that work with this cage. You can also adjust the forward and backward, the z-axis, with the screw in the top and the base plate on the bottom. So the base is actually this one right here. This is the original one. It gives you some forward and backward adjustments, so you can make those adjustments as well. Now, as you can see, I've made a little bit of modifications and I'll explain why. So the reason why is because this cage is designed to be used permanently on your camera. So once you mount everything on there, it stays. And if you want to take your camera off, you have to take off everything using tools with a hex screw, with a hex screwdriver, take off the hex screws, and you have to take them off piece by piece. If that's the way you like to shoot, put a cage on, leave it on permanently, then that's perfect for you. For me, I typically like to remove the cage from the camera from time to time. For example, if I want to put the camera on a gimbal, say for example, I like to take the camera off to lose some of that weight. Or for example, if I want to take the camera out for traveling, I want to take the camera off to lose some of that bulk. So I wanted to make this or modify this in a way that it's easy to take the camera on and off. So first thing I did was I replaced the top screw here, which was originally a hex screw, with one of these toolless thumb screws. Makes it very easy to just take this off without using a tool. On the bottom, I've actually removed the original base plate, or the base of it, and have replaced it with a SmallRig Manfrotto style base. And I will put this in the description below, but it's a very universal piece as well. It just attaches to the front of it using hex screws, and because this bracket on the front of this cage is actually just a sliding bracket, you can pretty much put anything in there as long as it fits a 1/4-20. On the bottom, I've actually also added a cheese plate from SmallRig. That just gives me more options for mounting tripod plates. That is pretty much the modification. So If I ever want to take the camera off the cage, I just have to unscrew the base, unscrew the thumb screw in the top, and just slide the entire camera out. Now the cage is still intact, the cage is still set up perfectly for this camera, and so I can do whatever I want with the camera, and then whenever I want to put it back into the cage, all I have to do is just slide it back in. It makes it very easy to break it down, put it back in without too much fuss. There you go, that's the CAMVATE Universal Half Cage. I think it's actually very versatile. It gives you a lot of mounting options, even though all of them are quarter 20s. I feel like you can pretty easily adapt that to NATOs or put a cold shoe on there. And the best thing of all is that the next time you buy a camera, you no longer need to sell your cage or throw away your cage. You can just reuse the same cage on your new camera and go right back ahead and keep on shooting.